Greetings and salutations. And I know that it's not a very popular game, but I am going to do some more megalithic building on Minecraft now. I've got a plan, at least to a degree, to build a lighthouse. A rather sizable lighthouse, too. Now, the idea is to build the lighthouse right out, well, not out there where the skeleton is, but right out there on that jetty. You'll see it in the daytime. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out the jetty so that it's nice and equal. And then as I build up, I'm going to use stairs to make it look more tapered and smooth when it's tapered instead of jagged. So I'm going to try to take some extra care with building it. But I was at a loss of what to play. I thought, I should do my Nuzlocke, or I should continue that or something. And I thought, you know what? I haven't played this in ages. Yeah, it's not that popular, but at the same time, I haven't played it. I've been avoiding it, actually. Mostly because the popularity of the game is low, but also because every time I mention the word Minecraft to my nephew, he immediately wants to drag me into a world modded full of stuff. And while it's like, okay, I understand his joy of the game, I'm not a big mod user. In fact, the only mod I use is the borderless glass and RTX extra graphics so that it can have ray tracing on the sun. That's it. That's all I use. I mean, there is one mod though that I did see that I thought was interesting, and that's where they take Minecraft and they turn it into an RTS. Now that's an interesting topic. And apparently it's gaining a lot of steam. A lot of people like it. A lot of people like the whole idea, which I can't say as I blame them because this game is rife for an RTS. If you think about it, right? You've got multiple factions. You've got, the zombie faction. You can always use, like, the monster faction, I should say. The nether faction, and then just the villager slash player faction. Humanoid faction, if you will. And yet, he's still battling the cold. It's a summer cold. I get one of them every few years. But at any rate, the whole RTS idea is a great idea. And as you can see, my draw distance is turned way up. So. I already had a creeper blow up a part of my house. Had to repair it. Where did I put the gate? There it is. I was gonna say, I put a gate in there somewhere. Hopefully that other skeleton dropped his bow. Sheep. Oh, he didn't drop his bow. Because if he had dropped his bow, I'd have been tap dancing. Not literally, but figuratively. So the idea, like I was saying earlier, is, oh, hey, I've got trees on my house. I can actually use that. Is to come out here to this jetty and build it up. So, like, smooth it out, cut down some of these blocks, put down some new blocks. Hey, there's some coal. And get this all sorted out. And then make a big oval or a roundish shape here. Maybe even down there. I don't know. And then make a lighthouse here. And then have it be, I don't know, 100 blocks high. Give or take. That's the idea. Whether or not it actually comes to fruition in the near future remains to be seen. I'm usually good about completing projects, except for my old build, because I accidentally pushed that into experimental mode, and I can't take it out of experimental mode, which is tragic because I didn't want it to be in experimental mode forever. It's rare for me to find coal too, by the way. But with the way I'm feeling with the cold and the way I'm feeling just in general, and I'm bushed, exhausted. Yeah, here I am, 1:30 in the morning, recording and creating content. You know, you gotta do what you gotta do. And of course, you've got people out there that will, they don't, they don't think that this is, content per se. They are not receptive to the idea, and that's fine. And like, if they're not receptive to the idea, okay. To them, it might not be content. To others, it is. Of course, I do that. Leave it to me. Nothing is foolproof to a sufficiently talented fool. It's a lesson to everyone. Because if you're a sufficiently talented fool, nothing will stop you from making a fool of yourself. The way I see it is, I am foolish. I'll be the first person to admit it. We'll turn this fan down. It's way too cold. It is currently 59 in here. But I have to cool it down because it's going to be very hot tomorrow. So, gotta do what you gotta do, you know? Being a sufficiently talented fool is not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, people like to distort that and say, well, if you're a fool and you're foolish, how's that a good thing? And to that I say, well, being a fool and being foolish are two separate things. If you're knowingly being foolish, that's tragic. I'm gonna pour myself a cup of coffee. Because then you're just like, I know I'm being a fool. I know I'm doing something that is bereft of any sense, yet here I am doing it. And then the rest of the people around you look at it and go, why? Simple. Right? If people around you are asking why you're doing something because it's foolish, and you knew it was foolish, then it's probably a bad idea. However, if you're doing something that, unbeknownst to you, is foolish, then that's not as bad, which is, being a fool. You're being just a fool. And it's like, okay, yeah, wow, I already grew. It's like I'm being a fool, but I didn't know what I'm doing is foolish. All right. Like, for example, if somebody's out there playing with matches and they accidentally set themselves on fire, that's foolish. That's knowingly foolish. And if they do it, that's just tragic. Like, supremely tragic. I had to adjust my seat there. Okay, birch trees. Can I get some more saplings, or... But nevertheless, I try not to be overly foolish. I try to be very conscientious of my decision skills, and that doesn't mean I'm not a fool. I've been made a fool more than once. It's not fun. I mean, legitimately, it's not fun. But at the same time, that's life. Sometimes life deals you a raw hand. You can't do anything about it. My birch tree investment's not very good. I need more. So we can take the charcoal out. We have regular coal. That's great. And I can take maybe 6 logs, turn that into extra coal. The rest is going to be turned into planks because I need them. And then I'm going to make... I don't know. Yes, I know my character is starving too. Sad as it is, not much I could do about it. Short of, you know, slaughtering a cow. You know that old saying too, right? It's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. It's a very poignant phrase. And I don't know who said it. They were very wise when they said it. I don't know. I also don't understand. Does anybody else get very pensive and lost in thought when playing games like Minecraft or playing games like Terraria or, in my case, Diablo 2 Hardcore? Like, is that a everybody thing or is that just a me thing? Because I'm really curious about that. Because if other people are very pensive and lost in thought, they're at the same time, it stands to reason that maybe it's almost therapeutic. You know what I mean? Not in like a cathartic sense, but more of like a you're sitting there and you're realizing that you're doing something tedious, and so you have to occupy the mind in such a way that it makes sense to you, or so that the mind doesn't go wandering too far. And I just, maybe it's just me. Maybe it is just me. I don't know. But every single time I play Minecraft or something where I'm got a lot of tedious labor that needs doing, I find myself always being very lost in thought, very pensive, very philosophical. Perhaps that's the human condition. Because if you think about it, gone are the days of the big thinkers. Those people that had grandiose thoughts and grandiose um, ideas and people like Plato, etc. And with them having all those philosophical thoughts and grandiose ideas, it makes one wonder, is it unique to them or is it an innate thing in humankind? Like, do we yearn for the philosophical? Because I feel like, and this is my personal belief, I feel like that there's a there's emotes now. I feel like that humankind is drawn to certain philosophical things, right? They're drawn to wanting to make sense of everything around them. And if something doesn't make sense, they often seek solace in finding something that does make sense, right? And so they'll focus on they'll focus on things that sometimes would be rather vague to the general. I didn't want three of them. Vague to the general public. You know what I mean? And don't do that. I don't have a carved pumpkin yet. Kind of need a carved pumpkin. That way I don't get slaughtered by an Enderman. I'll throw the rotten flesh in there until I make an incinerator. Back down into the mines I go, I guess. Because surely I'm not the only one that has a mind that yearns for answers. Right? I mean, I know there's others out there, but is it everyone? Right? Like surely other people have some form of thought process where they sit down and they think there has to be an answer to it, right? You got those people out there that take to manifesting, and they will manifest themselves a new reality. They'll manifest themselves a new I can't even just say reality, but they'll manifest themselves a new, like, a goal in their life, and they'll just say, well, I've already done it, right? It's no different than me saying I'm already successful, whether or not people believe it, right? Then again, do they have to believe it? Because if you think about it, the only people that have to believe is you, is yourself. Because if you yourself believe it, then it must be true. Which then raises the question about mankind. Are we shaping our own reality by our thought patterns, or by way of making like, we'll make a statement. Doesn't necessarily have to be a grandiose statement, but we'll make a statement, and when we do, it becomes fact, right? If only to us. Now, that's not saying that you can, per se, manifest things that are outside of your control. Obviously, you manifest for yourself. Everybody manifests for themselves. Now, there's people out there that obviously don't believe in manifestations. They don't believe in the ability that it can happen. Which, again, it's each individual's belief systems. But I ask you, if you believe it and it doesn't occur, why didn't it occur? Did you believe it wasn't going to occur and that you were only doing it to prove everyone wrong? Did you set out with the mindset of this isn't going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway? it raises so many questions in my head, but yet they're questions that cannot be answered. Of course, the philosophical mind doesn't ever take breaks on that. It sits there and it constantly gnaws away at it, gnaws at the back of my head, constantly saying, "Oh, think about it again. Run it through your mind one more time. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong." Therefore, let's say manifestation does work. Let's say if you set out and said, of course that worked. I already know, I already did it." Okay, you know you did it. Now apply that to time. Apply that to string theory. If you know you've already done something, that means those events were meant to happen. Those events were meant to pass in that order. Now, if that is indeed the case, and humankind has the ability to pierce the veil, so to speak, and reach across into the ether, it begs the question, why did it take so long to regain this ability? Why was it hindered? Of course, you have people saying, "Oh, well, that's because of the pineal, or the pineal, depending on what area of the country you're from." And they talk about the pineal gland being key to this. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if the ancients knew and they did it, and you had a destruction of knowledge, it means there's a concentrated effort to remove it. Now, why would there be a concentrated effort to remove it if there wasn't validation behind it? See what I mean? Now, if we're talking pure time travel theory, well, let me tell you right now, time travel, I think if time travel were to be perfected, it would have to be a read-only state. Reason being, if someone else could rewrite time, they would rewrite it in their own way. They would rewrite it in their own benefit. They would not rewrite it for the sake of everyone. They would not rewrite it for the sake of mankind. They would rewrite it so that they are on top. Such is the human condition. Of course, people would like to declare that I'm wrong here, but let's be real. Humankind always thinks of self first. They do what's in their own best interest. It's self-preservation. It's an innate trait that happens in all species. It's like, for example, not that I condone doing it, because it's just cruel, even though it's a common housefly. Pull the wings off of a fly. Right? What happens? It becomes a walk. Jokes aside, it tries to save itself. Self-preservation. And it will make that effort to save itself. It puts itself first. Regardless of what else it needs, it puts itself first. Humankind is no different. So if you were to have time travel, humankind would go out and try to make sure that they were the ones who had all the power. Doesn't matter who they are. They would make themselves the primary power holder, spurning everyone else, which is why if time travel is perfected, you would have to have it be a read-only. So you could go back and witness the events, but you can't directly change them. You can't, for lack of a better term, you can't write to that boot volume. Because if you think about it realistically, let's say time travel becomes a concrete thing. You go back in time, and you go back to a time where you were slighted by somebody. Doesn't matter who. And you think, I know what they're going to say, and I've already thought of a counter to it, a comeback, what have you. And it's clever and witty. That makes me out to be an awesome individual. So you say it. Now you come forward in time. Now that friend that you have once spurned is no longer spurned. And they've somehow managed to affect your life in quite a substantial way. Maybe not a good way, maybe not a bad way, but substantial nonetheless. Does that mean that what you were destined to do made you who you are? Not to sound like the Joker, but it gets to be an interesting concept if you really think about it. If you really sit down and pen to paper and think about it. Were their actions or inactions something that altered your life in a substantial way, but you don't know it? Because again, you won't know it until it's done. So you change it, you come forward in time, and now your life's drastically different. But what happened? You happened. You happened to do something that made you you. And now you've altered that. So now you're not yourself. It's a really interesting idea. Most people don't ever put forth thought into it. Most people sit there and they take everything at face value and they take everything for granted. Now, let me get into the whole idea of time travel being a thing, an actual applicable thing. E equals mc squared. Everybody's like, well, that's the theory of relativity. Einstein did that. What part of E equals mc squared directly talks about mass, or directly talks about an object and a gravitational field in a black hole or around supermassive structures in space? What about that? That equation? None of it. Think about it. Basic chemistry, basic physics, basic chemistry, or not chemistry, sorry, basic physics 101. E, energy, equal to m, mass, times c, the speed of constant, squared. What's the speed of constant? Speed of light. So, why would you need to move something the speed of light squared? Why would you need to know how much energy you need to move it to the speed of light squared? What's the point? Doesn't mean it's relative to light, because you're trying to move it quicker. Theory is that there's something called time dilation. Time dilation happens when you move something closer to the speed of light. Objects become flat, objects slow down the closer you move to the speed of light. So why would you have to move squared, speed of light squared? What happens beyond time dilation? Does it go in reverse? No one knows. No one's reached that point. So, let's think about it. How would you teleport a human? Or not teleport, how would you time travel a human? You can't use mass. Mass changes. Your mass changes on any given day. Your mass becomes different every time you intake a beverage. Your mass becomes different every time you intake food or expel waste in any regard. So, knowing that, how can you fully get the mass of a human? Volume. Mass and volume are interchangeable inside of physics. So you get your volume. Once you have your volume figured out, you know how much a person needs to be to teleport them. So now that you know how much volume a person has, and now you can teleport them. But how do you find the volume? You can't have, Bob with a pole, just push him down on the water, underwater. Doesn't work. Goes round. And you also would have to have the volume of that portion of the pole. So, what do? You take a human and you put them in a suit, a wetsuit. And when you put them in a wetsuit, you submerge them and the wetsuit underground. Or not underground, underwater. There you have the volume of the human and the wetsuit. Then when you have the volume of the human in the wetsuit, you submerge just the wetsuit. Subtract the wetsuit from the volume of a human, and now you have, or from the total volume, and now you have the volume of a human. So now you have two parts of your equation. You have your mass of a human being, and you have your speed of light squared. So you have your mass and your constant. So now all you need is the energy. And the energy has to be equivocal, those two integers multiplied. Mass times volume, or mass times the speed of light squared. Of course, the speed of light squared is going to be an enormous number, and mass, depending on the individual, will be an enormous number. Seeing as that is how this all works, and we've now figured out that it is applicable, whether or not it's actually doable in practice. It's applicable in theory. You can sit there and say, there's the math. There's the mathematics. And with those mathematics, you can then be so sure of yourself that you can indeed time travel a human being. And of course, when you have that, like I said, all you need left is just the one common denominator. But if you could time travel, if you could, then if you could time travel right now and go back and fix perceived grievances in your past, would you? What would they be? It's an interesting question. Personally, I would not. Oop, did not want that. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't change a thing. Solely because I know what my experiences have done. They have given me everything I am today. They have allowed me to become what I am. And allowing me to become what I am, it's like I said multiple times. I said it's the oddity that makes me a commodity. Right? And there is that nuance of it that, yes, I'm a commodity, but is it a commodity people seek? Maybe. Some people do. Some people enjoy it. Other people not so much. Well, that's fine. Each person is their own person. It was painful. Hey, now I can fish. Really? Yeah, they just bogarted that one. Can't believe that. I'm gonna need more dirt. Now, there are people out there that will find this next completely unrelated topic. Some of them will find it interesting. Others not so much. On a completely unrelated subject, when it comes to the moon landing, how did we get the astronauts back? Specifically the one that filmed the launch of the lunar lander when it took off. Who'd they leave behind? Who was the brave astronaut that decided he was going to stay on the moon as the lander lifted off and came back to Earth? Knowing full well he was never coming back because they didn't have enough fuel, remember. We've all been told they only had enough fuel to lift off from the moon and make the return trip. So, what really happened? Who'd they leave behind? And if they left them behind, how did they get the live footage on the moon while it was happening? Television broadcasting was not wireless at the time. Required big cables. So that raises another question. Who, pray tell, had the TV camera up there? They couldn't wirelessly transmit it. It was impossible. They didn't have the technology. Not even secret government technology. Don't even go there. Yet, and they still made landline phone calls from the president's office. There was no wireless technology there. How'd they field the call? What'd they do? Put a phone antenna that somehow transmitted to Earth? Took minutes for it to transmit? It's not very feasible. I mean, be somewhat realistic here. You're talking about broadcasting a phone signal through space and hoping that it makes it to the president in real time. Even with a slight delay, you're hoping. Yet, where? So did we ever really go to the moon? No. I don't believe so. I believe it was all a fraud. I believe it was perpetrated for a sole purpose. Of course, people are going to say, oh, you're a conspiracy nut. Yeah, but have you seen the track record of conspiracy nuts lately? I don't know about anybody else, but it's pretty good. Well, let's take a real big critical think on it. Let's say you create NASA. You've created a space agency. Nice. And you got a whole bunch of former Nazi scientists through Operation Paperclip to come over and build you rockets. go to the moon. So you get your entire rocket program. And once you have your rocket program, what happens? Well, your rocket program is completely dependent upon those same people you brought over. And now you're funneling billions of dollars into it. Hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Even back then, you're funneling money. Tons of it. So, after you funneled all this money in, the only result you get is you're told, well, you can't get past the Van Allen radiation belts. Okay. So now there's a big belt of radioactive material somehow in the sky between here and the moon that prevents us from traveling to the moon. That's interesting. And if we've been to the moon so many times and so early, why haven't we gone back? With the newer technology, they could have put anything up there. They could have put a domed society up there if they wanted to. They didn't. Why not? And where did all the NASA money go? It's all slush fund money. Where'd it go? It went to the same project I was talking about earlier. E equals mc squared, time travel. Went to that project. Now, of course, people are going to say, oh, but you're crazy. But am I? Am I really? No. It's feasible. Everything that I've mentioned is completely 100% feasible. Nothing in there, nothing I have said is left in the lurch, so to speak. Everything is a completely feasible thing. But people don't like that. People don't like looking at it that way. Because then they have to come to the conclusion and they have to basically swallow the bitter pill that they've been lied to for decades. The government does this all the time. They're paid to lie. I mean, attorneys are even paid to lie. Right? The defense attorney is paid to lie on your behalf and to put reasonable doubt in the courtroom. He makes money to lie. Just saying. The government has entire branches dedicated to lying. Of course, people don't like hearing it. It's inconvenient. Now, there's a lot of people that don't trust government. Now, I'll tell you right now, I trust government, less than a Taco Bell fart. I trust government less than being in an elevator with Ray Rice, Everybody remembers the elevator Ray Rice incident where he punched somebody out in an elevator. All right? So I remember it. Maybe you guys don't. Maybe before your time, but I trust government less than that. Because realistically, government's got a lot of problems. Having said that, you have the Bureau of the FBI. You have the FBI, right? The FBI, some of them do honest investigative work. And some of them are corrupt. Same with any governmental structure. You could go to MI5 or MI6 or whatever it's called. they're corrupt too. There's parts of it that are corrupt. Any sort of power structure has some form of corruption in it. But the FBI was brought about, and its sole purpose when it was made was to spy on its political opponents, and then of course lie about it. The CIA used to be the OSS. Their job was to go into, at the time when they were the OSS, the Office of Secret Services. This was back in the 1920s. Was to go into South American countries and overthrow stable countries and instill dictatorships for cheap bananas. Ask yourself one question. What country goes out there and acts up, but then turns around and never does anything? Quite a few of them. Who are they controlled by? Who controls the controllers? See? It's a deep, deep hole when you start digging. Not saying that everybody should sit there and take my word for it, but do some research. Just Google any of that stuff. Anybody can look it up. You look up the FBI's original purpose, and it was spawned by J. Edgar Hoover to spy on his political opponents. It's the whole point. They were brought in to investigate his political rivals. Nope. No, you don't, Enderman. Now, the fun part is you can stare at Enderman with this on, by the way. Wherever he went. I don't know where he went. But anyway, you could stare at Enderman with the jack-o'-lantern head on. And they won't attack you. See? 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 They can't attack you. Because you don't look like a human. It completely blocks it. Now, if you attack them, yeah, they're going to attack you back. That's not the point. The point is, if you don't want to get attacked by an Enderman by staring at them, wear a cut pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern. Like, you know, like I was saying, though. And then you could look up the CIA and the OSS. Just look it up. Takes you no time, takes nobody any time to look this stuff up. Truthfully. And if you really want your mind blown, when you take a look at you probably have noticed this. Now, I know it's going on 40 minutes. I'm going to end it here shortly. We didn't even get to building the jetty yet. I was securing food sources and everything, but if you think about it, you sit down, you ever sat there talking with your friends around your phone, and then all of a sudden the next day you're on TikTok or Twitter. I still call it Twitter because I use the website. And you type in twitter.com, it takes you there. So it's still Twitter. You go to Twitter, which, by the way, use the Brave browser. No ads. So you go to Twitter or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook. Barely anybody uses Facebook. Snapchat, whatever you use out there for your social media. You will see adverts. Or if you're just browsing and you see little pop-up adverts, and you were just talking about that. That very thing you were just talking about appears in adverts. And if you talk about it enough, they'll start sending advertisements into the mail to you. This was spawned in the early 2000s. It was called Project Prism. Prism. And everybody signed on to it. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, all of them. When these companies first came out, they signed on to it. It is an aggregation of data and data harvesting for the sole purpose of curating and pushing product to enrich themselves. It's not a joke. Anybody can look it up. It's a former project. They were co-opted by the U.S. government to do so. Wonder who had shares in those companies before they were publicly traded, or as they became publicly traded. I wonder who had shares in them. Ever take a look at a congressman and see their wage, and then take a look at their um, net worth? Perfect one to look at. And this is by no means partisan. You could do it with any of them. You could do it with any single congressman. Just pick one. The only reason I'm picking this one is because it's new. It's newer. Let me bring it up. Salary of a congressman. Salaries of the members of the United States Congress. In 2025, it is $174,000 per year. Okay. And you just look up anybody's net worth. And there's a lot of people whose net worth is way more than their wage. Way more. Like, for example, the Pelosi's. Everybody says, "Oh, well, the Pelosi's they have other businesses, they have other things." Sure, yeah, but that's not that's under Paul Pelosi's name, not Nancy's. So when you look at Nancy's net worth as a whole, it's in the millions, making $175,000 a year. Take a look at any new congressman if you can find their net worth somewhere. Their net worth's in the millions. How? They've only been in the office seat for 3 years, 2 years, some of them 4 years. $175,000 a year, minus taxes, assuming they pay them, minus living expenses in DC, assuming they pay those, and they don't use slush funds like NASA or Social Security, which, despite what anybody thinks, Social Security was originally drafted up as a giant slush fund. It was. There was a lot of stuff that was drafted up as a giant slush fund to pay specifically for a couple of things. But I digress. They dip into the coffers regardless. And you take a look at it, the numbers don't add up. Math's not mathing. Because you take a look at you've only been in the office 4 years, 5 years, yet your net worth is in the millions, but you only make $175,000 a year. Even let's say they tax dodge everything. $175K, 5 years. Might be $1 million, roughly. They dodge every single form of expenditure. Yet they're worth tens of millions of dollars. How'd they get the money? So it goes hand in glove, right? So you have corporations lobbying on behalf of themselves to Congress. Then Congress gets a cut of it, right? Now, there was some other stuff that was brought up, and this is the problem with pork politics, right? They'll come up with certain things that have come out where it's like they're going to go study the breeding of the breeding habits of some Eastern European mantis or something. It's some sort of insect that they don't really need to be over there studying. What happens? They ink it for $100 or so million, and they tell the guy, okay, you're going over there and you're going to get a, $40,000-$50,000 paid vacation. You go over there, you claim you're doing this study, you write up the results, whether they're true or not, doesn't matter. But while you're there, you have to deposit the rest of this millions of dollars we've earmarked in this bill into what are called non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Then those NGOs take that money and they donate it to super PACs, political action conferences, political action committees, right? They donate it to the super PACs. They donate it. Both sides of the both parties do it. It's not exclusive. Both of them do it. Then those super PACs give money to the people that are campaigning into their coffers. But the expenditures are never enough. The expenditures never are equivocal to the income. So where does the rest of the money go in their coffers? Right in their pocket. They do it all the time. It's the biggest scheme known to man. Back in the day, you had to go out there and basically knock on doorsteps or get on a soapbox. Way back in the day. All the positions were voluntary until 1800 something. And then it was $5 per diem. And I looked that up. It was $5 per day. So what happened? Politicians used to have to meet for 2 weeks to vote on bills. It took them a year to draft them. They were allowed to read the bills, take the time to look it over. Okay, what happened? Well, now it's become a full-time job to sit down there in D.C. and do nothing. They're taking in $175,000 a year to just sit there, eating fried chicken on the floor of Congress as a political statement. 175 grand. You take a look at those clowns. Take a look at what they're doing. You want to make some budget cuts? Make the position voluntary. Go back to the way it was when the Constitution was drafted. You come up for 2 weeks. Guess what you do the other 50 weeks out of the year? You work in a job, brother. But not in D.C. That's what everybody else did back in the day. But I'm going to leave it there, because I've gone way off into the weeds. This is what happens when I get philosophical. But do yourself a favor and look some of this stuff up. You'll be surprised what you find. But when you do look things up, don't take the research results at face value. Ask yourself one question. Who stands to gain? If you ask yourself that question, no matter what comes up, who stands to gain from that? Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. That's the person that stands to gain. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my philosophical, somewhat political, not even a rant, but theory. And I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow. I will be getting over this cold very shortly. And when I am, I can become more productive and everything. And as always, have a good one.